Hey, Reddit, this is going to be a long one. I've been holding this in for years and need to get it off my chest. I 30M landed my first job when I was 22 working nights at this sketchy restaurant on the edge of town. Nothing special about it, just your typical fluorescent lit hellhole where I dealt with drunks and cleaned mysterious fluids in the bathroom. I didn't have much choice since my parents made it crystal clear, if I wanted college, I had to help pay for it. So I picked up every shift possible. Nights, weekends, holidays, my social life became non-existent. I saved enough to cover my first semester at the local university. It wasn't some fancy Ivy League place, but it kept my parents off my back. My sister Lily, though? Complete opposite story. For years younger and the golden child. She learned early how to manipulate my parents. She'd fake cry, just one tear, and they'd trip over themselves fixing her problems. It was actually impressive in a twisted way. While I was getting robbed at gunpoint, happened twice, at the restaurant, she complained about boring high school and friends going to beach houses for spring break. My parents bent over backwards for her every inconvenience. New math tutor? Done by week's end. Latest iPhone? Delivered without asking twice. It became painfully obvious they didn't just love her more, they idolized her. When she was cast as a background character in the school play with 2 whole lines, they invited the entire extended family for a 3-course celebratory dinner with flowers. When I made Dean's List while working 34 hours weekly, my dad nodded and said, "That's what you're supposed to do." That summer I worked doubles to fix our broken AC. I handed over every paycheck to my dad. When we finally got the new unit, guess who got credit at the family barbecue? Lily, for helping pick out the most energy-efficient model. By college, I'd accepted the dynamic. I was the workhorse, Lily was the princess. The restaurant job was soul-crushing, but I stuck with it because Dad made it clear, no job, no college contribution. Their contribution was letting me live rent-free. Everything else, tuition, books, insurance, that was on me. Meanwhile, Lily's future was discussed like a Harvard versus Yale decision when really, she was a C student more interested in Instagram than academics. They started her college fund when she was 10. I didn't know college funds existed until filling out my own FAFSA forms. By her high school graduation, I was drowning in coursework and working an office job plus weekend restaurant shifts. My parents nagged me about focusing more on school, oblivious to my struggle balancing everything. Lily chose a private university an hour away because the campus was cute, and they had good parties. My parents covered everything: tuition, textbooks, meal plan, brand new MacBook Pro. I was still using a refurbished Dell that sounded like a jet engine with 2 browser tabs open. But what broke me was bigger. One evening after a brutal 13-hour shift, I dragged myself home exhausted. Instead of my planned shower and leftovers before passing out, I found my parents and Lily at the kitchen table, glowing with excitement. "We have exciting news," Mom chirped. They'd bought Lily an apartment. Not rented, bought. "It's just a small place near campus," Dad added, "so she doesn't deal with noisy neighbors or cramped dorms." I couldn't form words. I was living at home because rent was impossible for me. Every dollar went to tuition and gas. I drove a '98 Honda that broke down monthly, and they casually dropped $180,000 on an apartment for her. Worse, Lily wasn't grateful. She wrinkled her nose and said, "It's nice, I guess, but the kitchen's kind of small." I lost it. "Are you serious? They just bought you an entire apartment and you're complaining about the kitchen?" Mom shot me a freezing look. "Don't start, Michael. This is a milestone for Lily. You should be happy she has a comfortable study space." Right. Lily never held a job and didn't care about college. She only applied because our parents made her, like me. The difference? She could be openly resentful while getting everything handed to her. I swallowed my anger, went upstairs, and slammed my door. What was the point? They'd dismiss me as always. "You're overreacting. Don't be jealous. Why can't you be happy for your sister?" Next morning, Dad was making coffee when I grabbed breakfast before my 5 a.m. shift. About last night, he started. You owe your sister an apology. She was excited about the apartment and you ruined the moment. I nearly choked. I ruined her moment? Are you kidding? Watch your tone, he warned, classic move when he couldn't win the argument. Fine, I said, grabbing my keys. Tell Lily I'm sorry her kitchen isn't big enough in the free apartment she got for doing absolutely nothing. I slammed the door behind me. Childish? Maybe. But I was tired of being the only one expected to be mature. At work, my buddy Jason noticed something was off. When I told him about the apartment, he got genuinely angry on my behalf. That's fucked up, he said. Have they always played favorites this bad? Pretty much, I admitted. But this is next level. What will you do? Good question. I was still financially dependent on them for housing. I couldn't afford both tuition and rent with my jobs. Nothing, I finally said. Keep my head down, finish school, get out. That's rough, man, Jason said with a sympathetic pat. The apartment became the family obsession. My parents showed photos to everyone, acting like they'd accomplished something amazing. Mom would gush, it's in this nice area, walking distance to campus, security building, granite countertops. While I calculated how many hours I'd need to work for 1 month's rent in such a place. Lily quickly found things to complain about. The walls are so bland, she whined during dinner after my 9-hour shift. And the couch is too firm. Can't we replace it? Dad nodded sympathetically. We'll sort it out, sweetheart. I couldn't hold back. Why don't you paint the walls yourself? It's your apartment. Lily rolled her eyes. I don't have time for that. Mom jumped in sharply. Michael, don't be rude. She has enough with the move and starting classes. You know how stressful this is for her. Stressful? God forbid Lily faced anything challenging. Yeah. I wouldn't know about stress, I muttered, thinking of my 60-hour work week, full course load, and looming research paper. What was that? Mom's tone warned me not to push it. Nothing, I said, leaving. Got homework. Moving day was a production. Dad rented a U-Haul despite Lily having little stuff. Mom bought all new everything. They spent the entire day arranging her place exactly as she wanted. I had exams that week and couldn't help ferning another lecture about family responsibility. I couldn't face watching them fawn over Lily while I did heavy lifting. When they returned, they looked satisfied like they'd completed a major life achievement. Mom scrolled through photos, it's just perfect for her. I wondered if they'd ever put this much effort into anything for me. The answer, no. That night, I decided to get out ASAP. This family dynamic was crushing my soul. I'd find a way financially, take more loans if necessary, anything to escape being the afterthought who worked for everything while Lily coasted on their generosity. Things got more complicated about 3 months into Lily's first semester. She stopped coming home weekends. When Mom mentioned it at dinner, Dad looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to say something but didn't. Then came money requests. Small at first, higher utility bills, special textbooks. Then bigger, car repairs, spring break trip deposits. My parents handed over cash without question. I saw Dad counting $100 bills from their safe when he thought I was working. Meanwhile, I took every overtime shift possible just for ramen and gas money. One October weekend while studying for midterms, Mom entered my room with an envelope. Michael, could you do me a huge favor? I accidentally took Lily's financial aid forms. She needs them ASAP for the bursar's office. Could you drop them off? I wanted to refuse, my only day off in 2 weeks with a major economics exam Monday. But Mom's look said this wasn't really a request. Fine, I sighed. I'll go now. Maybe take her to lunch too, she added, handing me $60. My treat. Great, delivery boy plus forced sister time. I tried calling and texting Lily to no response. Typical. When I arrived at the apartment, I used the emergency spare key. The moment I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. The smell hit first, weed, cigarettes, and something chemical burning my nostrils. Not just college party smell, something worse. The place was destroyed. Beer cans and pizza boxes everywhere. The white couch Lily complained was too firm, had burn marks all over. Questionable stains covered the carpet. And there on that couch was a skinny, shirtless, tattooed guy I'd never seen, passed out with a nearly empty Jack Daniels bottle. Hearing the shower running, I kicked the couch. The guy jolted awake, bloodshot eyes unfocused. "Who the hell are you?" he slurred. "I'm Lily's brother." "Who the hell are you?" I shot back. "Tyler, her boyfriend," he smirked. Boyfriend? Lily hadn't mentioned any boyfriend. This guy looked 30 plus, with bad tattoos and visible track marks inside his elbows. My stomach dropped. "How long have you been staying here?" I asked, surveying the disaster zone supposed to be my sister's study space. "About 3 months," he said casually. "Your sister's cool, man. Real generous." He laughed like I was missing some joke. Before I could respond, Lily emerged wrapped in a towel, freezing when she saw me. She looked thinner, with dark circles under her eyes and a scabbed sore at her mouth corner. She looked rough, really rough. "Michael, what are you doing here?" Her voice was high, panicky. "Mom sent me with your financial aid forms," I said slowly, taking in her appearance. "What's going on here?" "Nothing. Tyler's just visiting for the weekend," she shot him a warning look. "That's not what he said," I replied, noticing a small metal pipe and what looked like crystal meth on the coffee table. "What's that?" I pointed. "Nothing," she rushed forward, sweeping the items into a drawer. "Just stuff for a party." I wasn't fooled. I'd worked enough late restaurant shifts to recognize meth. I'd called cops twice on bathroom shoot-ups. My golden child sister was using, and based on her appearance, not just recreationally. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded. "Is this where all that money goes? Supporting this loser and buying drugs?" Tyler stood, swaying slightly. "Watch your mouth, bro." "I'm not your bro," I snapped. "How old are you? Do you have a job or just live off my parents' money?" Tyler stepped toward me, but Lily intervened, clutching her towel. "Please, Michael. Don't make a big deal. Tyler's going through a rough patch." "I'm helping him. We're careful." "Careful? That's meth, Lily. There's no careful with that." I looked around the trashed apartment my parents had sacrificed for, bragged about, and thrown in my face, while their precious daughter funded a deadbeat's habit and fell into addiction herself. "You need help," I said finally. "And Mom and Dad need to know." "No," she shrieked, grabbing my arm. "You can't tell them. They'll kill me. Please, I'll clean up. I'll make Tyler leave. Just don't tell them." Tyler laughed from the couch. "Baby, you know I'm not going anywhere. We had plans, remember?" His smug look made me want to punch him. For a moment, I felt protective of my sister. Then I remembered how my parents always favored her while criticizing me for minor things like B- grades. She'd created this mess herself. I gave Lily 1 week to clean up and get rid of Tyler, or I'd tell our parents everything. She promised to fix it while Tyler dismissively told me to leave. Driving home, I debated telling my parents immediately. Would they believe me or somehow blame me? Lily texted, begging me not to tell them, promising she'd handle it. When Mom asked about Lily, I kept responses neutral, hiding my discovery. She mentioned sending care packages, reminding me of our different treatment. I almost laughed thinking about what kind of a stress Lily was actually experiencing. Over the next days, I wrestled with my discovery, the drugs, Tyler, the destroyed apartment my parents bought her. Lily's check-in responses were vague, working on it. Need more time. It's complicated. By day 5, I knew she wouldn't handle it. I decided to wait. Maybe she'd surprise me. Maybe she'd get her act together. But deep down, I knew better. Update 1, a week passed without hearing much from Lily besides some vague texts. Meanwhile, I was drowning in coursework. I'd missed 2 assignments because of extra shifts, and my economics midterm was a complete disaster. I knew I'd failed at the moment I walked out of the exam hall. My professor emailed my dad, still listed as my emergency contact, about my academic performance. That Sunday night, Dad cornered me in the kitchen. "Your professor says you're failing economics. We're not paying for college so you can throw away opportunities." "You're not paying for anything," I snapped. "That's my money from my jobs. Every penny." "Don't start that again," Mom walked in mid-argument. "Your attitude lately is appalling." "My attitude? You want to talk about attitudes? While you're sending care packages to your precious daughter, do you have any idea what she's actually doing?" Dad's face darkened. "What's that supposed to mean?" The week was up. Lily hadn't fixed anything. I took out my phone and showed them the photos I'd secretly taken of her apartment and the drugs, the squalor, Tyler passed out on the couch. "This is where your money's going. This is what's happening in that apartment you bought her." Their faces drained of color. Mom grabbed the phone, zooming in with trembling hands. "This can't, there must be some mistake," she whispered. "No mistake. She's using meth with her deadbeat boyfriend who's been living there for months." Dad grabbed his keys without a word, and they rushed to Lily's place, leaving me alone in the sudden silence. 3 hours later, they returned, looking shell-shocked. Dad collapsed into his chair, head in his hands. "You were right," he admitted, voice hollow. "It's worse than you said." Yet even then, they made excuses. "This isn't Lily's fault," Mom insisted, eyes red from crying. "That boyfriend took advantage of her. She chose to start using," I countered. "She chose to let him move in and lie to you about it." "You don't understand addiction," Dad argued. "She didn't choose this." They spent the next 3 weeks entirely focused on getting Lily into rehab, bringing her comfort items, visiting daily, and making plans for her return. Meanwhile, I worked double shifts trying to salvage my economics grade after that failed exam. I barely saw them except when they needed updates on my schedule to coordinate Lily's transport to therapy. A month later, Dad confronted me again about my continuing academic struggles. "Your grades are still slipping. The semester's almost over, Michael. You need to focus." Mom chimed in, "Lily has an addiction. The counselors say she was self-medicating because of anxiety about college expectations." "What about me?" I exploded. "I'm exhausted. I'm working 2 jobs and taking a full course load. When do my problems matter?" "Lily's situation is medical," Mom explained condescendingly. "Your grades are about effort." The injustice hit me like a physical blow. She destroys a $180,000 apartment doing meth, and gets sympathy and support. I struggle with 1 class while working 60 hours a week to pay for school, and I'm lazy? Do you even hear yourselves? "Nobody said you're lazy," Dad countered. "The difference is Lily didn't choose her situation," Mom added. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Stop. She absolutely chose this. You've never set boundaries for her. Ever. She's always done whatever she wanted with 0 consequences. Your sister is fighting for her life, and you're making this about you." Dad shouted, face flushed with anger. "No, you made this about me when you called my professor to complain, while ignoring that I'm killing myself trying to meet your expectations with 0 support." The silence was deafening. "I'm done," I finally said. "I'm done trying to earn your approval." "What does that mean?" Mom asked cautiously. "It means I'm dropping out." Dad's face turned purple. "You're a failure. Even with her issues, at least Lily's fighting to get better. You're just quitting." Something inside me broke. My sister was a meth addict who destroyed their apartment, yet somehow I was still the disappointment. That night, I made a decision. Rather than drop out immediately, I'd move out. I found a room in a shared house across town, switched to part-time student status, and changed my major to computer science, something I actually wanted to study, not what they pushed me toward. When Dad tried guilt-tripping me the next morning, "This family's falling apart, and now you're abandoning us too?" I challenged him. "Name one thing you've done for me that's even remotely comparable to what you've done for Lily." He sputtered. "We let you live here rent-free." Wow. Bare minimum parenting. Meanwhile, Lily gets everything without consequences. That's different. She's sick. And I've been drowning for years while you make excuses for her. I moved out that weekend. When I came to pick up the last of my things, Dad wouldn't even look at me. Mom cried, saying I was being selfish when the family needed to stand together. As I pulled away from the house, a weight lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was making decisions for myself, not to please my parents. I had no idea what would come next, but I knew one thing for certain: I wouldn't live in anyone's shadow ever again. Update 2, fast forward 2 years. Life took a major turn after I moved out. I finished my CS degree with honors while working both jobs and living in that shared house with 3 random dudes. Eventually, I landed a decent job at a tech startup as a junior developer. For the first time, I was making good money doing something I actually enjoyed. I upgraded from the shared house to a small 1-bedroom apartment, started dating this amazing woman named Mia from the UX team at work, and even adopted a weird-looking shelter mutt I named Baxter, pretty sure he's part lab, part corgi, part who knows what. Things with my family stabilized into what I'd call a distant but functional relationship. We did holidays together and occasional family dinners, but kept conversations superficial. Lily went through rehab. She had one relapse about a year later but seemed to be doing better, taking community college classes and working part-time at a coffee shop. My parents seemed humbled by the whole experience. They weren't as blatant about the favoritism anymore and actually showed some interest in my career. I think seeing their golden child fall so hard forced them to reassess some things. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a random Tuesday evening. I'd just gotten home from work and was about to take Baxter for a walk when Dad called. His voice sounded strained as he asked if we could talk. Turned out they were having financial difficulties. Specifically, the bank was threatening foreclosure on the house. Between Lily's rehab costs, which insurance only partially covered, the massive loss they took selling her trashed apartment, recouped only about 35% of what they paid, and dipping into retirement to take a second mortgage, they were about 4 months behind on payments. This is where it got rich. Dad asked if I could help them out with about $20,000 to get current on their mortgage, plus more for other debts. After years of working at that disgusting restaurant, after being told I needed to contribute while Lily got everything handed to her, after finally building my own stable life, they wanted me to bail them out. I'd only been at my job for 7 months. That amount would have wiped out my entire emergency fund and then some. When I asked why Lily couldn't help, Dad got defensive. "She's giving what she can, but she's still getting back on her feet." Always the excuses for Lily. After a long talk with Mia and a sleepless night, I drove to my parents' house. They looked hopeful when they saw me, clearly expecting a check. Instead, I gave them the hardest no of my life. Update 3, I told my parents straight up that I wasn't giving them the money. Mom started with the guilt trip immediately, but I cut her off. "I've thought about this a lot," I said. "Bailing you out now won't fix the real problem. You've spent decades giving Lily whatever she wanted while expecting me to fend for myself. Now that consequences have finally caught up, you're turning to me, the kid you never supported, to save you." Dad's face flushed with anger. "So you're just going to let us lose our home? After everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me? You made me work since I was 22 to pay for my own education while fully funding Lily's. You bought her an apartment while I drove a car that broke down every month. You called me a failure when I was working 2 jobs to survive." Mom started crying, which would have worked on me before. "Not anymore. I love you both, and I'll help with emotional support or resources for financial counseling, but I won't enable this cycle with cash." I left them sitting in shocked silence. The fallout was immediate and intense. Mom called crying every day for a week. Dad sent angry texts saying I was heartless and ungrateful. Lily, who they obviously told, sent a long message about how families should support each other, rich coming from her. For a while, I questioned my decision. Maybe I was being cruel. But Mia reminded me that boundaries aren't heartless, they're healthy. They're adults who made poor financial decisions, she said. You're not responsible for fixing that. 3 weeks passed with no contact. Then I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Dad, calling from a new phone. We sold the house, he said, his voice lacking the usual confidence. Found a 2-bedroom apartment. Your mother wanted me to tell you. I waited for the guilt trip, but it didn't come. Instead, he said something that stunned me. I've been thinking about what you said. About how we treated you differently. I'm not saying you're right about everything, but... He paused, clearing his throat. I'm sorry we made you feel less valued. It wasn't a full acknowledgement, but from my father, it was monumental. Things moved quickly after that. Dad found a better paying job. Lily had to get a roommate and work more hours. They were humbled but surviving. Our relationship changed permanently. There's a distance now that wasn't there before, but it's healthier than the dysfunctional closeness we had. They know I won't be manipulated anymore. Last summer brought 2 major developments. First, Mia and I got engaged. We bought a small house with a decent yard for Baxter, nothing extravagant, but it's ours, paid for with money we earned ourselves. Second, my startup was acquired by a larger tech company. The equity I'd been accumulating suddenly had real value. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable in a way I never thought possible 5 years ago. When I told my parents about the acquisition, I saw something new in their eyes: respect. Not the conditional approval I'd chased for years, but genuine respect. At our engagement party, something unexpected happened. My parents arrived early to help set up. Mom brought homemade appetizers, and Dad immediately started arranging chairs without being asked. As I watched them interact with Mia's family, normal, loving people who valued their children equally, I realized they were trying, really trying, to fit into my new life on my terms. Later that night, Dad pulled me aside. We've been talking, he said nervously. Your mother and I would like to contribute to the wedding. Not much, but something. I started to refuse automatically. It's not about control, he added quickly. We just want to be part of this. But we understand if you say no. That's when it hit me, they finally got it. This wasn't manipulation. This was them accepting my boundaries and still wanting to be involved. I'll think about it, I said, surprising myself. Sometimes I look around at my life now, Mia by my side, Baxter sprawled on our floor, friends from work who've become family, a job I love, and can't believe how far I've come from that exhausted kid cleaning up mysterious fluids at the restaurant. My chosen family has grown stronger. We have game nights, cookouts, people who help without keeping score. It's what family should be, supportive without manipulation. Thinking about starting our own family soon brings up complicated feelings about parenthood. I know exactly what not to do: don't play favorites, don't make one kid work while giving everything to another, don't dismiss legitimate struggles. My kids will be valued for who they are, not what they achieve or how convenient they are. The exhausted, resentful kid working double shifts at that restaurant wouldn't recognize me now. Not just because of external success, but because of internal peace. I'm no longer defined by my family's opinion or support. I built this life brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. It's mine, and nobody, not even family, gets to take that from me. That's the real success story.